financial power, a system he can shape however he wants. The Virginians emerge with the nation's capital. And here's the pièce de résistance. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the game is played, the art of the trade, how the sausage gets made. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens. Thomas claims
Alexander was on Washington's doorstep one day in distress and disarray.
Thomas claims
Alexander said,
I've nowhere else to turn,
and basically begged me to join the fray.
Thomas claims
I approached Madison and said, I know you hate him, but let's hear what he has to say.
Thomas claims
Well, I arranged the meeting. I arranged the menu, the venue, the seating.
But no one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the parties get to yes. The pieces that are sacrificed in every game of chess. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens. Meanwhile, Madison is grappling with the fact that not every issue can be settled by committee. Meanwhile, Congress is fighting over where to put the capital. It isn't pretty. Then Jefferson approaches with the dinner and invite, and Madison responds with Virginian insight.
Maybe we can solve one problem with another and win a victory for the Southerners. In other words,
Ho,
a quid pro quo.
I suppose.
Wouldn't you like to work a little closer to home?
Actually, I would.
Well, I propose the Potomac.
And you'll provide him his votes.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Let's go.
No. What else was in the room where it happened? The room where it happened. The room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened. The room where it happened. The room where it happened. My God, in God to trust, but we never really know what got discussed. Click, boom, and it happened. And no one else is in the room where it happened. Alexander Hamilton. What did they say to you to get you to sail New York City down the river? Alexander Hamilton. Did Washington know about the dinner? Was there presidential pressure to deliver? Alexander Hamilton. Or did you know even then it doesn't matter where you put the U.S. Capitol?
cause we'll have the banks, we're in the same spot.
You got more than you gave.
And I wanted what I got. When you got skin in the game, you stay in the game. But you don't get a win unless you play in the game. Oh, you get love for it, you get hate for it, you get nothing if you wait for it, wait for it, wait. God help and forgive me, I wanna build something that's gonna outlive me. What do you want, Bert? What do you want, Bert? If you stand for nothing, Bert, what do you fall for?
I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, I wanna be in, I've got to be in the room, that big old room. The art of the compromise. Hold your nose and close your eyes. We want our leaders to save the day. We don't get a say in what they trade away. We dream of a brand new start, but we dream in the dark for the most part. Dark as a tomb where it happens. I've got to be in the room. I've got to know where it happens. I've got to be. I've got to be in the room where it happens. I gotta be where it happens. In the room. Click, boom. Ah, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Bird, sir.
And did you hear the news about good old General Mercer?
No.
You know Claremont Street?
Yeah.
They renamed it after him. The Mercer legacy is secure.
Sure.
And all he had to do was die.
Yeah, that's a lot less work.
We ought to give it a try. Now how you gonna get your debt plan through?
I guess I'm gonna finally have to listen to you.
Really?
Talk less, smile more, do whatever it takes to get my plan on the Congress floor.
Now Madison and Jefferson are merciless.
Well, hate the sin, love the sinner.
Hamilton,
I'm sorry, Burr, I gotta go.
But
Decisions are happening over dinner.
two Virginians and an immigrant walk into a room
Diametrically opposed foes.
They emerge with a compromise, having opened doors that were
Previously closed. Bros.
The immigrant emerges with unprecedented financial power, a system he can shape however he wants. The Virginians emerge with the nation's capital. And here's the pièce de résistance. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the game is played, the art of the trade, how the sausage gets made. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens. Thomas claims
Alexander was on Washington's doorstep one day in distress and disarray.
Thomas claims
Alexander said,
I've nowhere else to turn.
and basically begged me to join the fray.
Thomas claims
I approached Madison and said, I know you hate him, but let's hear what he has to say.
Thomas claims
Well, I arranged the meeting. I arranged the menu, the venue, the seating.
But no one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the parties get to yes. The pieces that are sacrificed in every game of chess. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens. Meanwhile, Madison is grappling with the fact that not every issue can be settled by committee. Meanwhile, Congress is fighting over where to put the capital. It isn't pretty. Then Jefferson approaches with the dinner and invite, and Madison responds with Virginian insight.
Maybe we can solve one problem with another and win a victory for the Southerners. In other words,
Oh,
a quid pro quo.
I suppose.
Wouldn't you like to work a little closer to home?
Actually, I would.
Well, I propose the Potomac.
And you'll provide him his votes.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Let's go.
No.
What else was in the room where it happened? The room where it happened. The room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened. The room where it happened. The room where it happened.
My God, in God we trust,
But we'll never really know what got discussed.
click, boom, and it happened. And no one else is in the room where it happened.
Alexander Hamilton.
What did they say to you to get you to sail New York City down the river?
Alexander Hamilton.
Did Washington know about the dinner? Was there presidential pressure to deliver?
Alexander Hamilton.
Or did you know even then it doesn't matter where you put the U.S. Capitol?
Cause we'll have the banks, we're in the same spot.
You got more than you gave.
And I wanted what I got. When you got skin in the game, you stay in the game. But you don't get a win unless you play in the game. Oh, you get love for it, you get hate for it, you get nothing if...
Hello and happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Krista Apple. I am a 2009 Temple MFA acting grad, and I'm your current board president for Temple's Theater, Film, and Media Arts Alumni Association. I am super excited for tonight. This is the kickoff for our summer blockbuster alumni series, which is going to feature conversations with prominent Temple alumni about their work in the entertainment industry. If you enjoyed tonight's conversation, come back and join us again later this summer. On August 7th, you can join Oscar Award-winning editor William Goldenberg to talk about the film Argo. And on August 28th, we will discuss the movie It with screenwriter Gary Dauberman. And in the meantime, I hope you'll join us on our TFMA Alumni Association Facebook page if you haven't already. And I also hope that you'll share your thoughts on tonight's event with all of your Temple alumni networks and community. Tonight's conversation about Hamilton, of course, is being facilitated by Dr. Kimmika Williams-Witherspoon. And I have the honor of introducing her. And in just a moment, I'm going to pass the virtual baton over to her. And she's going to introduce you to our very special panel of alumni guests. I want to thank Kimmika and our alumni guests for their time and their passion tonight. And I'd also like to thank Shauna Goodman and Jason Lindner for all their work behind the scenes to make this event and this whole series possible. Kimmika Williams-Witherspoon is a woman who I feel needs no introduction. Her artistry and her commitment to her students are both reputations that really precede her. In addition to being an associate professor in Temple's theater department, she is, in no particular order, an award-winning playwright, poet, anthropologist, author, journalist, activist, and performer. She has been honored by Theater Communications Group, the Independence Foundation, and Pew Charitable Trusts, just to name a few, and her stage credits span the globe. And I'm sure that many of us on this call tonight have been taught, mentored, and inspired by her at some point in our Temple journeys. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the evening over to her. So Kimmika, thank you and hello.
Thank you so much, Krista, for that introduction, and good evening, everyone. I hope that you are ready for an invigorating conversation with three of our outstanding alumni from Temple University. I have the pleasure of introducing them. They have long bios. I'm going to try to shorten them, but I do want you to know the breadth of work that these individuals have done. First and foremost, Bryan Terrell Clark played George Washington in the record-breaking Broadway hit Hamilton from 2017 to 2019. He made his Broadway debut playing the iconic role of Marvin Gaye in Motown the Musical, which received a 2014 Grammy Award nomination for Best Musical Theater Album. Bryan starred opposite his mentor, Lawrence Fishburne and Angela Bassett, in the acclaimed drama Fences at the Pasadena Playhouse, and has garnered theater credits at Mark Taper's Forum, at the Alliance Theater, and at the Guthrie. Most recently, Bryan appeared in Ava DuVernay's Netflix miniseries When They See Us, Cherish the Day, and Queen Sugar on the OWN network. And he will appear in Shonda Rhimes' Inventing Anna, as well as Warner Brothers' Snowpiercer. You've seen him on TV in everything from CBS, NCIS, New Orleans, Blue Buds, Person of Interest, Unforgettable, CSI New York, and The Unit. And he's also been in NBC's The Mysteries of Laura, Fox's Empire, USA Network's Royal Pains, BET's The New Edition story, and Tyler Perry's House of Pain. His own theater production company is called Artist Park Productions. And for our purposes, he won the 2018 Voice for Social Justice Award from Rutgers University, the 2019 Gallery of Success Award from Temple University, Help USA 2019 Help Hero Award for volunteerism for his ongoing commitment to social change and activism. Bryan is a graduate of the Yale School of Drama and, wait for it, Temple University. He is a native of Baltimore who currently resides in Los Angeles. Bryan, welcome. I'd also like to welcome Paige Smallwood, who was the principal standby for the Schuyler Sisters in the Angelica National Tour of Hamilton. She's also known for her role in the as Apennine in the North American touring production of Les Miserables. She has an MA in musical theater performance from London's Royal Academy of Music and a BA in theater from, Temple University. Welcome. And then Josh Tower was the standby for Aaron Burr in the Angelica National Tour of Hamilton. His stage Broadway credits include School of Rock the Musical, Motown the Musical, Ragtime, Simba in Disney's The Lion King, Langston in Harlem, for which he won an Adolfo nomination, Murder Ballad, Superstar, Miss Saigon, Dreamgirls, Les Miserables, Bubbly Black Girl, Joseph, Chess, and Camelot. You've seen him on TV and the TV series Law and Order, Special Victims Unit, and Blue Buds. He's an Ambler native, and his mother taught at Temple University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Josh Tower. Please unmute your cameras. Welcome. How are you? Temple in the house. Come on, you can say something. Woo-hoo!
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
This is wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful. It's great to see you. Everybody looks good. First of all, let me just say that because we do good in quarantine, right?
Ain't no COVID here.
There you go. First up, this was the brainchild of Shauna Goodman. So big ups to her.
Shauna, we love you.
Shauna, we love you. Tonight, Jason Linder is my cohort in arms, who's manning all of the questions. So as we're talking, if you have some questions, please stick them in the chat box, and we'll try to get to them. I want to thank all of you for your willingness to chat with me this evening. And I want to ask you publicly, where are you all? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at?
I'm in LA. I'm on the West Coast. We still got some sunshine. We still got some time. But
Okay. You're in LA. All right. So we're not gonna hate on you. Okay. Anybody else? Josh, where are you?
I'm in New York City.
You're in New York. Cool
Same
beans.
time as you.
All right. Paige?
I'm in London, England right now. So
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
a little ahead of you guys, just 5 hours, but I'm here.
Okay, you're here, you're in the house, and that is wonderful. Now, because we know that you're at a 5-hour distance or difference from us, this conversation is supposed to be about an hour, but of course, if we're enjoying ourselves and you're having fun, we can extend that. But because you are ahead of us, if you have to get out of here, cool beans, just say, Kimmika, I love you, blow me a kiss and say deuces, and we'll understand, right? You know?
Cool.
If
Thank
you would
you.
have
I'll
gone to
try to
bed
hang on
before
for
7 a.m.
Yes, truly. I'll try to hang on for as long as I can because I love you all so much. But yes.
Cool beans. Well, we've got a lot of questions for you because a lot of people wanted to really sort of unpack your experiences that you've had up to this point. But because I'm talking to you, I got to start it off. I'm going to ask the first question. And most people are going to ask you to always come up with a memory, but I'm going to break that mold and you got to do two. So give me 2 memories each that will always stay with you from your time at Temple. And it could be anything from fourth meal at J&H to a football game, to a production that you were in, to a favorite class, but 2 memories each. Who's going to start us off? Ladies first, Paige.
Well, thank you, Kimmika. I guess I'll take one from the beginning and one from the end.
Okay.
I actually hurt myself. I tore all of the ligaments in my knee, every single one of them, right before we came for welcome week, I guess.
Are you kidding me? How did you do that?
I used to run track and I tripped over a hurdle and my knee bent ways that it's not supposed to bend.
Oh dear.
So there I was, welcome week, with this giant leg brace on, looking like a whole mess. But that's where I met some of my closest friends, and we still stay in contact today. Marcellus McQueen, as you know, Kimmika, that's where we met. Yeah, so that was like kind of my first welcome into Temple, and I was so scared. I was like, you know, nobody's gonna want to talk to the girl in the leg brace. Like they're all gonna think I'm weird.
But friends that hobble together stay together, right?
Exactly. And yeah, like Temple was nothing short of accepting and wonderful. So that's my first memory. And I guess my last memory would be, or, you know, the one at the end, would be when I was in rehearsals actually for Gypsy at the Arden. It was actually like the last semester that I had at Temple. So I was supposed to be at graduation that day. And I had to miss it because we were in the middle of tech, which was very, very sad. But luckily I was in the show with a couple of Temple alumni as well. So Jordan Dobson, who was the class below me, and
Yes.
all of the other Temple alumni who were in that show kind of threw me a graduation ceremony because they all remembered and loved their time at Temple, and they got me a cap and they got me a cake.
Oh
it
my
was,
goodness.
It was beautiful. And it was like
Big
our own
ups
little,
to Jordan and all of them.
Right. It was our own little like Temple family graduation.
Cool
So
beans.
Temple is like strong and hard, and our veins and our lines run deep in the theater community. So I'm so grateful for that.
Cool beans. Sweet. Who's up? Josh, you gonna take it away? 2 memories.
Oh, 2 memories. I mean, one, I could just generally say Kevin Cotter.
Okay.
I mean, just
Nobody was like him.
yeah, there was nobody like Kevin. I love that man. He's up in Ithaca, and you know he's having a hard time. Then the other thing was I kind of came to Temple a little late. I never thought I would go to Temple because my mom taught at Temple for 11 years, and I was like, I am not going to Temple University. I was around it my whole life, and so I was in the service for a while, and I ended up going to Temple. And when I first got there, I was like 22 years old, so
Okay.
I was like a senior's age basically. But I had been in the service, so I was in Johnson Hardwick, which I don't think is there anymore, right? the dorm.
No, they tore it down. Right.
Yeah, they tore it down.
No, no, J&H is still there. I'm sorry. That's the one right behind us.
Peabody's the other
Peabody is the one they tore down. Right. Yeah.
Anyway, I used to go over at like odd hours and clean the rehearsal hall, the Randall rehearsal hall.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I would go underneath the bleachers because that's where they had Theater 100. Because at that point, there were only literally like 100 students maybe in the theater department. I mean, if that. It was very small, and they did not have a musical theater program. It was a BA in theater. And I was cleaning underneath the bleachers that pull out, and I heard footsteps. And there was an old story about someone falling from the cherry picker, like Pop Randall's son, or maybe Pop Randall or somebody. And I heard footsteps, and I went to the hallway, and there was nobody there. And I was like, peace. I'm not.
The ghost of Pop Randall.
The ghost, y'all. So look out. Look out.
Now, I have to tell you that all of the faculty thought you had OCD because you would clean so much.
First of all,
really did.
It was nasty under there. And, and we had to sit on it. So I was like, I'm going to take care of this. I had come from the service. We cleaned bathrooms with toothbrushes, please. So it was easy.
So what's the second one?
The second one was, there was a grad student who's actually passed away since then, Brad Munoz. I think his name was Brad Munoz. And I was an undergrad, and he was in the grad class, and was a brilliant actor. And we were doing, I can't remember what it was. Cynthia Blaze was directing it. It was some workshop. And I, as an undergrad, basically memorized my lines and everyone else's lines. And he was really late with a line. So I kind of like waited because I was next. And I said, Brad, I think the line is blah, 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 blah. And he said, I was taking a pause. I was taking the beat. and Cynthia was like, it was a really long beat, Brad. So can we just...
So now when you take your pauses, you think of that moment.
Yeah, so now I tell people off. It's fine.
Cool beans. And Bryan, two memories.
Two memories. I'll start off with Temple's connection to the community.
Okay.
I had no idea that Temple was so involved in the theatrical community in Philly. If you went to Temple and you were Black, you connected to Freedom Theater.
Right.
And I got my equity card at Freedom Theater my first year at Temple. I did Black Nativity as a Christmas play at Freedom Theater. And I just want to take a second to honor the memory of Walter Dallas.
Yeah, I was about to say.
This year. And he was such a staple in Black theater. He was a phenomenal mind. And if I was not in the Temple community, being from Baltimore, Temple brought me to Philly. And Temple brought me to Walter Dallas and Freedom Theater. And one thing I love about both Walter and Temple is that there was a strong, encouraging element, particularly for people of color, to create their own theater. We weren't, I don't know about y'all, but we weren't the kind of class that just sat around upset that we weren't getting cast or upset at the choice of the season. If you gave us an opportunity to perform, we'll create our own, and we did. And from that experience, and Walter, I remember coming back to my classes at Temple and my time at Temple, and we had a great time creating Once on This Island with Lamar Bagley, and Lamar also did Avenue X, and was also an integral part of Walter Dallas's life and Freedom Theater. So that was the first one.
And who was a member of the alumni board.
Wow, I didn't know that. Shout out to Walter Dallas. The second one was my big argument with Kimmika, y'all.
Uh-oh.
What made us fall in love. So you might see me muting my camera a lot because I'm a talker. I can talk. I can go forever. And I'm also, I'm not one to shy down or back down from an intellectual debate.
This is true.
And I don't always take the path that everybody else takes. So we're in theater history class. Is that what it was?
Yes.
Classical
traditions, I think.
That's what it was. She knows exactly what I'm about to say. And so we do Alyssa Strada. She has an amazing way of making the classics relevant and fun. So we're talking about Alyssa Strada, and these women are holding back their sexuality and literal sex to end this war. And Kimmika looks around the class and she goes, I'm talking to the men in the class. Those of you who identify as men, my question to you is, would you, in order to bring about world peace, allow yourself to be raped by a gorilla And
I did.
all these noble brothers in the class were like,
Yeah.
and I was sitting there like this. And
He
so
did.
she's like, Bryan, why are you not raising your hand? And I was like, there's a lot of things I would do for world peace. But have you ever seen a gorilla? Have you seen how big and massive a gorilla is? We're not talking about, like, we are talking about being ripped to shreds. And
For world peace.
I ain't doing it. Put me in the head, put me in a gas chamber. We're not going to get destroyed and ripped apart by a gorilla for world peace. And then it's probably going to go back to war in a week. I'm not doing it.
See, I was trying to push the envelope. Josh, would you do it? Would you do it? Would you do it? Tell the truth. Come on.
Would you do it, Josh? Get raped by a gorilla.
He's like fanning us off, like, nah, man, move to another question.
And the King Kong's happening. The answer is no. So it made me fall in love with her just because of the way she posed the question and where we were in our trajectory in the class in terms of the content that we were reading. She also, so my second favorite memory is your class. She never let us off the hook. We had a project where we had to write a paper about theater from the perspective of our personal origin, like our family's history. And I was like, great, I'm American. That's as far as it goes back. And she literally looked at me and she was like, you're not getting off that easy. I was like, my ancestors were dignified, amazing people who happened to be enslaved. So what do you want me to do? She said, here's this book called Africanisms. And it traces the slave routes. So if you get your family tree and you can trace your lineage back to a specific state or county, this book will help you trace the slave route to where your family's from. And it was mind-blowing that my family's from Ghana. And I found that out because of Kimmika, Williams-Witherspoon. So I love it.
Well, that's a wonderful memory. So, I mean, I thank all of you for taking that journey with me. I'm going to lead into the second question because it leads into the questions that our guest, our audience has written in to ask of you. And it's all about your trajectory with Hamilton. 4th of July has just passed. And I don't know about you, but for me, every 4th of July, I think about Frederick Douglass's speech. It's always a little surreal. But this year, it was even more so because of all of the things that have been happening. And then Disney streaming on Disney Plus, Hamilton. And I've been watching it every single day. And here's a trailer.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Founding father without a father got a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a lot smarter, by being a self-starter. To your union and the hope that you provide. May you always be satisfied.
This is Hamilton.
So after you did your time at Temple University, you went off and did really wonderful things, but you each ended up in Hamilton. And I'm just wondering, what was it like to play these individuals who were young and trying to frame a new nation, changing the way the world was, just as we're trying to do that in contemporary times in 2020. And did you see a parallel when you began that attachment with this fantastic Broadway play? Anyone? Paige, jump in.
Well, I went first last time, so I want to popcorn to somebody else.
Okay, all right, popcorn.
I have stuff to say though, but I'll let my fellas talk first.
I think Josh should go first.
Oh, okay. I actually started in the workshop of Hamilton. I was one of the original George Washingtons, and I took over when Chris Jackson couldn't do it. So I was in at a very early stage, and they kind of, because Chris and I we both played Simba. Basically, after Chris played Simba, Clifton Oliver played Simba, then I played Simba. And all of us kind of have passed roles back and forth over the years. And with Chris being a good friend of Lynn's, he's been in all of Lynn's stuff. They were in Freestyle Love Supremes. You know, when Lynn started that way back when, Chris was there. They started together with the other guys. So anyway, it was amazing because in that workshop, Rebecca Naomi Jones was Angelica, but the rest of the people were there, you know, Ephraim Sykes, David, Nick Christopher, who I took over. I am not a standby for Burr. I actually play Burr.
You know, and I read that, and I don't know why I read that because I saw you as Burr, right?
Right, and that's I don't really, honestly, I don't care, but just to clarify, and but Nick was in it, and Nick was playing Hercules Mulligan and the King at the time. Lynn, I did it opposite Lynn. Leslie Odom was in it. Ariana DeBose, who was the original Bullet, and so we had a lot of original people do it, and then I finished and did other things, and Chris came back in, and it kept going. And I think, you know, there were a couple of George Washingtons after that, but it was really Chris's role the whole time. But it was, you know, it's an amazing show because a lot of people look at, you never even think about it until you really look at the show. You think of the Founding Fathers as Americans and all that stuff, but you don't really think about the fact, or at least I never thought about the fact that they were actually just immigrants from another country. Clearly, they were not from here. Right. You know, it was either the Indians and the slaves ended up being from here because they were brought here, but we did not come of free will, you know? So it's a really cool piece to be a part of because I think there's that book, The Color of Water. And I think after a while, you don't see George Washington as a black man on stage or whatever he means. There's no prescribed color of George Washington's in the show. There's no prescribed color for any character. If you can do the show and you can play the role and you can act it and sing it, they will give you the role. It really doesn't matter what color. And that's the glorious thing about the show. It does not matter. And while it is really a hallmark moment for a lot of minorities, they do not dissuade anybody from auditioning. And we have lots of other people in the show of varying colors. So, but as far as The Color of Water, as you go on, you know, in the show, the color of the characters literally disappears. You just think that's George Washington. And by the time he comes out for like, we are outgunned, like, you're just like, yes, it's George Washington. That's our first president. Like, you don't even think about it, you know? And for that to happen is an amazing thing because I'll give you another fact. Elphaba in Wicked has never been an African-American girl, except for Saquon, who was a standby, and another girl who was a standby. And Brittany Johnson was just now as a standby the first Glinda, the first African-American Glinda. So that's how far advanced this show is. Right. You know, they're like, we don't care. We're going to tell this story. So, I mean, I think that's the brilliance of the show. And celebrating it on the 4th of July, you know, the release, one of their mission statements is to get this piece out to the communities, to lots of different communities who cannot afford a $500 ticket to come and see the show. They have a program called Edgeham, and that's where, at least on tour, I think they do it. Do they do it on Broadway, Bryan? Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's on Broadway too.
Yeah, so what they do is they basically sell out the entire theater to schools, and the tickets are like $10 each. And on the road, you get all these different types of schools, and they're classified as certain, like, you know, class 2 or whatever it is. I don't even know how they do it. But you get all these kids who come in to see this, and they'd never be able to see it otherwise. So bringing the show to the people who can't see it is the reason that the tickets are $500, because that builds the opportunity for Edgeham to pay for all those tickets and for Gilder Lehrman Educational Foundation to help pay for those tickets. You know, for the people for students and for teachers and for, you know, faculty who otherwise, it's just too expensive. I mean, you can't,
wouldn't be able
a family
to
of 4, it's like $2,000, you know? I mean, it's less than that, but, you know, a ticket is minimally like $100, you know? It's just, it's expensive.
It is.
Know?
But this way, because it's streaming on Disney Plus,
Yep.
the world can see it. And
Exactly.
and based on the numbers I've seen, the world is watching, right?
Yeah. And the cool thing also is that, just really quick, is that people will still come back to see it live, because they can play that back a million times and it's going to be the same. But unless you come and see Bryan or Paige or I, that show is never the same unless you watch an archival video. Like, it's never going to be the same. Everything, there's always little mistakes every night, every show.
Not just mistakes. I swear that you were more active as Aaron Burr than some of the Aaron Burrs I've seen. But I still want to get to Bryan and Paige. Did you want to jump in?
Go.
Yeah. Paige, you want to go, or you want to go last?
You go ahead, Bryan. Yeah.
All right, it's double Dutch here. Come on, jump in. All right.
Okay, so it's interesting because I've heard Lynn say something to the effect of that I created this show about the beginning of the story of the beginnings of this country, but I want it to be told by what America looks like today.
Right.
And I think it's one of the most powerful things about the piece. It's speaking to what Josh is talking about. And we talked about this a little bit before we started this conversation, that Broadway as an industry, I feel, comparatively to other industries in this country, has begun the work in a really powerful, positive way for diversity and inclusion. And we're moving towards having the conversation about equality and equity, which is a separate conversation. But what's powerful about Hamilton is that representation actually matters. And I remember when I first saw the show, I thought to myself, it's perfect. It's perfect. No one should touch it. I had so many great friends in the show. And Leslie Odom Jr., shout out to him, did such a phenomenal job as Burr that I thought to myself, do not call me in for this audition ever. I don't need to be in the show. Y'all need to play this forever. Figure it out. So I called my agents and I said, it's great. The show is amazing. Don't call me in for this show. And I got a call and they said, well, what about Washington? And I thought, well, that's a little different because I love Chris Jackson, and I feel like Chris is such a powerhouse, right? So you can't kind of do what Chris does. And if you try to do what Leslie did, you just be a poor copy. So it's like, it forces you to have to bring yourself to the work. And it's one
Who
thing
else was at your Washington audition?
Say again?
Who else was at your Washington audition?
I mean, Josh was also at my Washington audition. He was there. And so, working with Tommy and those guys, it was really great because they really encourage you to bring yourself to this work. It's a little bit like Shakespeare. It's like Josh's Hamlet would be completely different than my Hamlet. And so that's kind of how the show works. Each Washington is going to be a little different. Each Aaron Burr is going to be different. But what's interesting, Kimmika, is that when I first saw the show, Barack Obama was the president.
Right.
And the climate in the room and outside of the show was one of great celebration. And the day I started rehearsal was the day that we spoke to Pence from the stage.
Oh, really?
I all of a sudden was coming into the theater and coming to rehearsal, and there was extra security. And the climate of our nation has shifted. And we're confronted, I think, with things that the show, that are highlighted in the show in a different way. I think if you go and listen to the show now, there are certain lines that ring out. And there are certain questions you leave the theater having to do a little bit more of a deep dive and Google with. And I think that that's the power of the show, because the show is rooted and grounded in so much history, but the optics of it are so clearly what America looks like now. I think it's causing a conversation that potentially the piece didn't necessarily cause before. It hits the ear and it hits the experience in a different way. And that's the power of theater. Okay. And that's why I agree with Josh that, I believe audiences will continue to come, because what the piece is saying, especially in a room that is alive, in a country that is vibrating really quickly right now, I think it leaves us having conversations about ourselves and our communities in a different way. So I love that show. It changed my life. Real talk.
Real talk. Paige, jump in.
As a continuation of what you guys both eloquently said, specifically, Bryan, what you're talking about with Lynn saying, and I always think of this quote, the story of America yesterday being told by America today, and how I saw that when I first saw the show. I was like, yeah, you know, color exists, and color is there as a representation of what we have become as a nation and what we are still working to find when we're fighting for equality. And recently, with everything that's been going on, Lynn has been in communications with the casts, and like, you know, Tommy Kail and Alex Lacamoire and all of them have been in communications with us to say like, hey, we're here. Like, we know we might not have done enough, but we are here and we are working and we are here for you. And talking about and thinking about how the show came from a place of we need to fight for representation when nobody was asking them to.
Right.
And how inspirational and how joyous and how celebratory that felt, to now going back to, okay, we started this when nobody was asking for our help, and now there are people who are asking us for our help. So we need to do not only what we've done for the past 4 or 5 years, almost 6 years.
Almost 6, that's right.
Yeah, wow. But now what we need to continue to do to be that change that we started when, you know, we felt just in our hearts, this is what we have to do without anybody asking them to do it. So I'm really grateful to be a part of that story too, just to continue on that legacy and to say, like, you know, times are going to be great and times are going to be horrible, but this message still stands no matter what climate we're in.
And we need it, and we need it every single day, right? Andrea wants to know if you could describe what the audition process for Hamilton was like. You talked a little bit about it, but take us through it, you know, step by step. What was that like? Anyone can take that.
You know, for me, what I realized is the audition process for Hamilton is a little different than a lot of shows. I think most Broadway shows, there's a process, right? But my experience with Hamilton is that one audition is actually about 3 to 4, potentially more auditions. The first audition tends to be with casting directors. I think a lot of people don't know this, but like you when you enter into a process, and that's one thing I love about theater, is it really is a process. You first meet these casting directors. If you've done enough, or you're in at a certain point, you don't even have to see the associates. You kind of go to the main casting directors. After that, usually you're pushed forward to some form of a creative, and then after that, the associates come in and really work you. I mean, you're in like, they're auditions, but they're more like work sessions. And they're really getting you ready for the dun-dun-dun-dun sessions. And you walk into a room and there's a juggernaut of people. And so it took me a while to get into Hamilton. I essentially auditioned twice, but if you count the actual physical times I got up and had to go into the room, it was 7.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
The first time was the 4 sessions, and I think they thought, I didn't get all the details, but I think they thought Chris was gonna leave the show because I think he booked Bull, right, Josh? Pretty early after Tony's or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but basically the cast of Hamilton were booking TV and film, y'all. They was booking. So the audition process started. You know, Hamilton is a hit on Broadway, and now who do we have to fill these roles once they leave? And then it was a staggered exit. A lot of people left at once, but then there was still a bit of a stagger. And so there was some time before that role was available. And then I was called to come in and kind of start that process again, only I kind of started it a little more midway. It was kind of like bring them in, brush them up, get them ready for producer sessions. And it was an amazing process. I felt free, which is a good thing. Oftentimes you start the audition process feeling like, what are they looking for? How do I show up and deliver what the role is asking for and what I think they want to see? But when you've gone in after a certain amount of times, you kind of step into this place where you're like, I'm going to do me. I'm going to do me with the work that we've done. And they encourage it and they push it because something about the show demands that you are front-footed. This is not the kind of show where you can sit back on it because you will tumble down the hill. It's a train that's going to move, and there are rhythms under you that are not going to stop for your pauses, as Josh was talking about, your pregnant pauses. The show is going to move, and it will run you over. I don't know who created this term, but it might have been Brandon Victor Dixon, who was playing Burr when I was in the show. But we created this thing called Burr's Corner. And there are times where you just get a little tongue-tied, or maybe you're a little tired that day, and the audiences know this show better than you do. So there are times where if you fumble a little bit, you got to get on Instagram or get on your social media and just say, listen, y'all.
I messed up, but y'all love me.
I messed up. Hashtag Burr's Corner. And it became like one of our favorite things about the show because it reminds you how alive the show is and how living the show is. But to be honest, that process of like being okay with that starts in auditions. Because I know very few people who go into audition for Hamilton and just feel like they nail it the first time.
Okay.
They're okay with you fumbling a little bit in the audition. And so once I knew that it was okay to be human in the audition, it made my audition process freer, and it made my performance freer too. So that was my experience.
Cool beans. Andrea wanted to ask Paige, what was that process like learning 3 different tracks?
Ooh.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, actually a lot of fun. This is my first experience, I guess, swinging. And by that term, I mean knowing and covering more than one role at a time. And if you don't know what a swing is, they are the person who saves the show. If somebody goes down, they have to know sometimes as little as 2 roles and sometimes as many as 12. So yeah, this was kind of my first experience learning multiple roles at a time. And the way that my brain works, I don't know if anybody else knows this fun fact about Harry Potter. I love Harry Potter. Oh, why am I blanking on the actress who played Hermione? Emma Watson? Oh, okay. As a kid, she's seen actually in a lot of the outtakes, like memorize or mouthing all of the other kids' lines, like mouthing Harry's lines and mouthing Ron's lines so that she knows where she comes in. And actually my process was a lot like that. And for me, it was a lot easier to settle into each of the characters once I knew exactly what the other ones were doing. So like as Peggy, and I'm standing on stage and I'm trying to figure out where I am in Skylar Sisters, I'm singing along with both Angelica and Eliza at the same time so that I know, okay, here I am, here's where I fit in, which can be kind of crazy. And I'm sure if I'm lucky enough after all of this COVID stuff to be back in the saddle, because I've only performed once for each of the girls, actually 3 times for Angelica, but once for everybody else. There will be a couple of burst corners in there for me because it's a lot to handle. But yeah, it's just kind of a whirlwind to think that I get to do all 3 of these ladies at the same time. And when I think of the joy that comes with that, I can't be mad at myself for the little mistakes because I'm like, this is a lot of material, but also I'm having fun. And I get to learn these 3 roles all at the same time. So that's kind of my experience with that.
That's the great thing about the show is it looks like it's so much fun. I hope it really is. Andrea wanted to ask this question, and Josh, I'm going to give this to you, because I saw your Burr. Hamilton is such a high energy show. How do you keep that energy up? And I mean, you were jumping off of stuff that nobody else jumped off of. I'm
in physical therapy right now. Literally, back surgery in March.
Oh no, really?
Right? Yeah, right when COVID started. So I'm still recovering.
So that energy, where you just make yourself do it. Just you got this.
Yeah, I mean, you build up stamina for the show for sure. And then you have kind of good and bad days. I mean, there's a good day at the office and there's a bad day at the office or a not so great day at the office. But generally, hopefully the audience never knows. There are those kind of Burr Corner moments. But oftentimes, the audience has already replaced a lot of stuff because they already hear it in their own head. So you just keep your mouth and your lips, and they already said it. You don't even sweat it. But I think it's eating right. It's getting to the gym. It's doing cardio, having the stamina, getting the right amount of sleep, drinking a lot of water because you sweat. We're all wearing like heavy wool. The men are wearing heavy wool coats. The women have bustles and huge dresses that have corsets. So your ribs and everything, all the breathing that you were taught is not the same because you can't tank up, because you're corseted down. So, I mean, everyone has their own process. For me, I got to go in and warm up on the stage. I basically have done that for 20 some odd years downright. I've got a foam roller and I'm rolling and I vocalize and then I go back to my dressing room and do a vocal, singing kind of warm up. But it varies for everybody, but it's all about stamina, and really being a student of the process and the discipline of theater, really making that kind of life commitment to like, this is what I'm gonna do. This is my thing for every show. And while it may vary a little bit, and all the players definitely vary, your process can really help keep you buoyant and keep you going.
Cool beans. Elizabeth is a Boyer student or graduate and wanted to know what was the musical rehearsal process, especially for those of you like Paige who had to learn multiple roles at the same time.
I didn't have to learn multiple roles at the same time, but I was shocked at how much this team trusted me. I was like, y'all trusted me way too much because Hamilton is the first time that I had stepped into a role on Broadway. Mm-hmm. And so I essentially learned the music for the show in like a day and a half.
Oh, wow.
I went through like 2 rehearsals.
Okay.
And one of the associates, Ian, took me up to like the top floor right above the dressing rooms and we worked out the music for 2 days. And then I was in rehearsal learning the blocking for about 2.5, 3. And then after that, anytime I was in the room with someone, we were just going through what they taught me the first week. And just to piggyback on what Josh said, I had a movement teacher that said, how you do some things is how you do all things. And it's good if you find a process for yourself, because I was more comfortable than I would have been stepping into the show, because they give you access to the rehearsal room. And so you go in, it's essentially you and a boombox, and there's tape on the floor that is the show, that is the stage. And so I would go in and I would work on my own every single day for hours, going through the show, going through what they just taught me. But they teach you the show fast, and they expect you to go in and do the work. I mean, the work that we do, I can only really compare it to an athlete. It's like what we do, we make it look easy, but there's so much discipline that it takes. Mm-hmm. And so, by the time you get to the end of the second week and they're like, Tommy Kail's coming, or Lynn's gonna stop by, or you got a brush up session with Alex Lackamore, you wanna like kill it. So it takes a level of discipline. And that doesn't start when you get the job. That starts before you get there. So my process was, I would put myself through a full rehearsal. A full 6 to 8 hour rehearsal, as if we were creating a new show. I would go in and do the work, so that by the time I met with them for the brush ups, my work had already been kind of like in my body.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm glad you talked about work ethic, because one of the questions that Maxwell wanted to know was, out of college, what were the first steps? And I guess the first steps is knowing what you have to do to succeed. But you tell me. What did you do to get where you are? Who wants to go?
I could just say, after Temple, I went to grad school at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which was, the head of the program was Donna Snow's teacher. And I think Donna's one of the few left that's there besides you, Kimmika, who was a grad student when I was there. There's not that many people there that I actually.
Yeah, it's all new people. But Donna is probably listening in now, so shout out.
Oh, I love you, Donna. But anyway, back then in the olden days. When I came to New York, you leave school, and I think Temple now, everyone has like a showcase, whether you're a grad student or you're a BFA, you have a showcase, you get an agent. And I really prided myself on open calls at that point. I mean, they didn't even have them computerized where you like sign up online. You had to show up at like 7 a.m. and put your name on the list and then wait for your 11 a.m. audition. And, I got ragtime that way, going in out of grad school. And, it was kind of between like, I think it was Lion King and ragtime. Lion King was like, well, hold off. And ragtime was like, do you want the job? And I was like, I will take the money and the rent money and the life money. So bye. You take whatever steps you need to take, basically. You shack up with friends who, you know, you all as a conglomerate, pay the rent, pay the utilities, you go take classes or not. I mean, especially if you just graduated, you're like, I'm done with class for a while. You got to get your survival job. I was luckily, I mean, it was 3 months after school that I got my first production contract in ragtime. So I didn't have a survival job like that. And then since then, I've been very lucky to just keep working. You know, a couple peaks and valleys, but those valleys are valleys of preparation so that you're just ready for the next peak, you know? So yeah, everyone's story is a little different, you know? I just, I had an agent that I was freelancing with, and I had that agent for 20 years up to about 2 years ago. I switched finally. I was what's called a legacy client. I was with them for my whole career. And at some point you just need to move on. So, you know, I don't know, someone else can speak on it because that's kind of my experience, but it's very different for everyone.
Yeah, if I could speak on that, Josh, really quickly. I've had a really interesting come about when it came to work ethic and job opportunities. The two main jobs that I've had, which have gotten me like my equity points and my equity card and everything, one being Les Mis and one being Hamilton, I got in two very different ways. I went to grad school in London. A lot of people told me not to go. A lot of people told me to go. And at the time, it was like, okay, do I go to London? Or I was very far along in the process of auditioning for Joanne for the Rent National Tour. Okay. And I was also, I had been in for Hamilton twice, for open calls within the last 2 years. And they had now officially offered me that work session slot that Bryan was talking about. So now this was like a potential opportunity, and something in my gut was like, you can't take that. You have to go to London. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. That school is everything that you need right now. That education, that like difference, that growth that I would get just living in a different country. I was like, I need that. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Hamilton, but I can't right now, which was terrifying because I was like, if I say no to Hamilton,
but it was a risk that worked.
Exactly, because I was so nervous that I had shut the door forever, you know? And at this point, I didn't have, I had a showcase for Temple, but I didn't have an agent and I didn't have a manager coming out of that, and very little, if any, interest. Went to London through the connections that I had at RAM. I booked Les Mis because Claude Michel Schoenberg, who wrote the music for it, happened to be a guest teacher, or I forget the word that we use.
Visiting faculty?
Sorry, what?
Visiting faculty?
Yes, he was visiting faculty, there we go, for our year. So he worked with us in depth on his material and on other material. So he got to know me, and James Powell, who was also the director for Les Mis in London at the time, also was a visiting faculty member. So he got to know me personally. One thing led to another. Now I'm in Les Mis, which was totally mind-blowing to me because it had nothing to do with the open calls that I had done and I had worked for in Philly and New York for, you know, the last 4 or 5 years. But then once I was on tour, still before I had a manager and before I had an agent, Hamilton remembered me. And I told them, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to London for a year. I'm studying abroad, but I'll be back in July if you guys are still interested. And they were like, cool, great, we'll let you know. Didn't expect to hear anything. A week, maybe a month after I was home, they called me and they were like, hey, we want to see you. Here's a work session slot. Please come in for Hamilton. And at this point, I had already signed on for a year contract with Les Mis with no outs. Wow. And I had to tell them again, I'm sorry, but I can't. And again, I was so nervous. I was like, this is it. Like, I've worked so hard. I went to those 6 a.m. waiting outside Telsey auditions, and now I'm shutting the door on Hamilton. Who does that?
Right.
But I did my year with Les Mis. I found a manager, and again, I hadn't signed with them at this point. I was just talking with them. And about 1.5 years in, I was like, okay, I think maybe it's time for me to look somewhere else, find my next adventure. I love Les Mis and I love everything they've done for me. And I went in for an open call for, what was it? Sound of Muse, The Music Man. Okay. And what happened was that at that random open call for Music Man, the casting director was the same casting director that I knew from Hamilton. And she was like, Paige, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm on layoff for the month. So I decided, might as well well, wet my feet again. I want to get back auditioning. And she's like, okay, good to know. And a month later, I had a call. And a month after that, I had another audition and then a work session. And then I got the call that I was cast. So it's crazy. It's like, one, I had connections, and I did work for Les Mis. I'm not saying that there was no hard work there, but there were connections that I made where opportunities wouldn't have been there for me if I didn't go out of my way to make those connections. And then there was Hamilton, which I literally worked like from the ground up myself to make those connections and build those relationships with those people so that they would remember me. And it worked out in the end, but it's just like you never know what your right path is. You just have to follow your gut and know that there's no wrong move. There is only a move, and to make it with your whole heart and soul.
So I'm hearing, the work ethic, the putting in all of the hard work and the getting up at the 6 a.m. so that you could be there and put your name on the list at 7, and then but it's also trusting yourself as the primary mechanism to sort of push you forward. Now we're coming up on that time frame, that hour in. So I don't want to hold you if you have to go, but if you can stay for a little while, we've got a few more questions to try to get through, but it's really up to you. But I do have to tell you, because Ramona, wrote a question in. She wanted to know, how was the undergraduate process or the graduate process, how that prepared you for this moment in time?
Yeah, go ahead, Bryan.
Yeah, one thing about the work that we do as artists, for all the artists that are listening, all of your life is preparing you for these moments. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's great about Temple is, because it's a liberal arts education, the other things that you are learning are contributing to your art. And that's one thing that I know was a big question for myself when I was at Temple. And then once I realized, wait a minute, when I study this and I learn this, my work is enriched. I became a crazy person. I became a triple major for like a quick second. I was a music major and like a world religious studies major. And then they were like, you're going to have to stay longer. And I was like, we're not doing that. We're going to change that. And I was a theater major, music minor, and a religious studies concentration. But I think that one of the beautiful things about the way the program is set up at Temple is it gives you an opportunity to take some kind of initiative and take some kind of ownership of your work. Because when you get out of school, kind of what Paige was talking about, and a lot of what Josh was talking about, there's no direct path. And that's the hardest part about stepping out of education in any way. Because you're taught from a child, at least here in America, that there's a trajectory. You go first grade, second grade, third grade, and so forth. But when you get out into this industry, it doesn't work like that. The matriculation is very much like a roller coaster. And part of that is the discipline, and part of that is the education, but a lot of it is what Kimmika just said, which is trusting yourself. It's your gut. When I was graduating Temple, we did the ERDAs. I went on my own and auditioned for Yale and NYU. And at the same time, I was skipping school on a Greyhound bus. And
going to New York. Sorry.
Yeah, no, totally. Skipping school on a Greyhound bus, going to New York. And I was in multiple callbacks for Lion King as Simba. I think we was all going to be Simba, Josh. At some point, it's like, if you're a black man and you can sing and you're a tenor, you're going to be Simba. So I was in callbacks for Simba, and I was up for a role in All My Children, a soap opera. And I did great at the ERDAs, and I got into Yale and NYU. And then I went to visit Yale. And that's the moment you have to trust your gut. Sure, you could be on TV. Sure, you could be on Broadway. These are things I had dreamt of since I was a child. But my gut knew when I stepped on the campus of Yale that this was where I was supposed to be. So there are some times as an artist that you're gonna have to trust your gut over what looks good. There's a great show out by Michaela Cole called I May Destroy You. I first saw this young woman on Netflix in a show called Chewing Gum. And what's great about it is she's a woman of color who kept the rights to all of her work when she was being offered $1 million for all of it. But so there's a part of you that goes, wait a minute, I'll write something else. Take this for $1 million. But you gotta trust your gut when your gut says everything that is gold, and I would rather wait for the right thing than just take what seems like a kind of good thing.
Right.
And she waited, and now her show is on HBO. And she owns all the rights to it. So there's going to be all these different moments in your life where you have to go, do I see what's in front of me that looks kind of good, or do I have to trust my gut and go a different way? And Paige's story is a perfect example of that. She had so many opportunities to just jump right into Hamilton, but it was like, you're supposed to go study. Same here. I was like, I got to go to Yale. So trust your gut. Trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Okay. Stephanie wanted to know if there was any particular cast or crew member from Hamilton that left a lasting impact on your life, and why?
If I can just jump in real quick, Josh and I are on the same tour, and our head of wardrobe, Brenda, always comes in and asks us how we're doing. And Josh, can you help me with these? She has 5 answers that we have to give her. 1 of 5, all of the 5.
Better than I deserve.
Yep. Blessed, highly favored. And what are the other 2?
Blessed, highly favored, better than I deserve. I can't remember the other one.
But yeah, so she comes in with a smile on her face every single day. And this is a woman who has seen us at our highs and has seen us at our lows and deals with our dirty drawers, y'all. Like, she does it all. And every day she asks us how we're feeling and just wants to check in on our souls.
And you got to give her 1 through 5.
Exactly. And you got to give her 1 through 5. And she's just always there. And she is kind of the heart, I feel like, the heart and the soul of our tour, and kind of the epitome of the people who work with Hamilton and are part of this family. Is like, we are all there for one another. And we are always there to say, hey, darling, how are you doing today? And if you're not feeling blessed or highly favored or better than you deserve, she's always there to talk. So, yeah.
Cool beans. Anyone else?
Because, like, when you think about Broadway shows or Broadway tours, you immediately think of like the cast, but you don't always think about the crew. And I was gonna say the same thing. Like, it's the head of house, Tim, and it's the head electrician, Derek, and the head, PSM, Amber. Those are actually some of the people that had the lasting impressions, because every person you see every day, I'm gonna see these guys on stage, we're gonna play, but when a head electrician brings you down to his man cave and goes, I smoked a brisket. I got some smoked wings, and I you're the first person I thought of. I need you to taste these. I got this new.
Yeah, that's special. That is special.
Come on down after the show. Those are the daily check-ins that make 8 shows a week worth it, because a lot of it's endurance. And so we really build real lasting relationships, not only with the people on stage, but our crew behind the stage. And it's funny because when COVID happened, my first thought, of course, was about like the fellow performers, but it was about my crew. It was about that family. It's about the janitor. It's about the usher. Like, what are our family members that are working to keep us buoyed up? What are they doing during this time too? So we, shout out to every crew member, every person who works behind the scenes. We love you guys so much, and you have a lasting impression, on our lives. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that too, because probably my favorite person is Eric Tysinger, who's one of our stage managers, our assistant stage manager, who's not with the show anymore. But we've worked together several times, and he's become like a brother. We have Steak Club. But my crew that I hang out with, because you do play with those cast members every single day, and you are especially on the road, it's very nebulous. You're traveling together, you're living together at times, you're eating together, it's intense. So the crew
it becomes
members, a
family.
Yeah, it's a family, and you have those brothers and sisters that you hate some days. You're just like, please, I can't deal with this today. But I'm still going to go to the same hotel as you and see you in the morning at breakfast.
Right.
You know what I mean? But so the crew really, for me as well, is very much my family. Nellie and Max and, all these people that, are automation and lighting are people who I hang out with all the time, because we will not talk about the show. It's like an understanding. You don't talk about the show. We talk about other things that we go to see, but we kind of don't talk shop, and that's a blessing. So yeah, shout out to all the crew members.
So of all of the things that you've done in each of your careers, is there a special moment? Is Hamilton it? or is it yet to come?
As far as a special role?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Was there one that just kind of, this is the one that I'm gonna take with me to the grave, that I'm gonna take with me to wherever I go on the other side?
Prior to this, I was in School of Rock, but prior to that, I was on stage with Bryan in Motown, and I was playing Berry Gordy, and we got, Bryan was an original company member, and I took over for Brandon Victor Dixon, who was, the original Berry Gordy in it. But we got to work with BG, with Berry Gordy, and that man is a walking history book. I mean, he started a business in the 1950s as a black man. Like, that's crazy. And it's a multi-million-dollar business that started dozens of other careers of all kinds of icons now, And I think that was incredible. But I'll tell you, my first performance after my put-in, Bryan will probably remember this, my first performance, like my wife and I bought a new place and she was pregnant. And my first performance, she went into labor. And so we go through this, and my show was not the best because there was so much going on.
Wait, she went into labor while you were performing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she called our stage manager, Julia, our PSM, and said, listen, I'm in labor. Don't tell Josh. I'm going to the hospital. And so we go to the curtain call, and I'm like, yes, we did it. And I think Bryan and I, were we holding hands? Are we right next to each other? And I was like, we did it. I was like, go. I heard someone say, go, go. And I was like, yeah, we did it. Go, go. And Bryan was like, no, your wife is in labor. Go to the hospital.
So everybody knew but you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, part of it is because Josh was on stage the whole time. Like, he had a tour de force kind of role where he couldn't leave stage. So we were performing with him, having scenes, looking him eye to eye, and we know he's having a baby.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
So that was the moment. I mean, I don't know if it was the role, but that's the moment I will remember for the rest of my life. And my daughter Marlo was born, and she just turned 6.
Oh my.
6 years ago.
Oh my goodness, that's a memory. Absolutely. Anybody else? Who's got one?
I'm gonna hop on real quick if that's okay, and then I might have to hop off.
Okay.
Thank you, Bryan. Mine for me is, as much as I love Hamilton with all of my heart. The first time I saw the show, I cried for 30 minutes, like ugly cried, because I felt seen and I felt heard and I felt like I could be a part of, this story and this legacy. But Les Mis will always have a special spot in my heart. Going to RAM, going to the Royal Academy and learning from Claude Michel himself and figuring out why he wrote the music that he did and how much it means to him, and having those master class sessions with him, just like spewing out and spilling out his heart and his soul to me and what I was doing right or what I wasn't doing just right enough. But then also at the end of it, like, knowing the work that I've put in and knowing that I still had so much more work to do, and having him sign off on me and say like, hey, I trust you with this piece and I trust you with this character and you know her. That is, I mean, I have a tattoo. I don't know if you guys can see it really well, but
I can see it. Touched your soul.
Yeah. And in the novel, they call Eponine the rose of the underworld. And I will just never, I will never forget how that felt. Also, one of my first week on as Eponine, I found out that one of my fellow Temple alumni, Ben Vargas, had passed away from osteosarcoma, from bone cancer. And it was horrible. It was devastating, but he was also one of my biggest supporters at Temple from the moment that we met, because I was always singing, always walking up and down Leah Chorus, like squelching my heart out. He told me that he saw something special in me, and everybody used to nickname him Jade. And actually that day I bought a jade ring, not knowing what had happened until later on. And I felt him so wholeheartedly with me in that moment. And to think that he was there with me for my first professional gig.
Absolutely.
And I could feel his support and everything. It's something I will never forget, and a role that will stay with me, and I hope with him for the rest of my life.
And he will always be with you, because that's the way Ben was. Absolutely.
Yeah. If anybody at Temple knows Ben, Ben was oh my gosh, just a whirlwind of love and happiness and joy and all of the good things that happen in this world in one little person.
Right. Before the program, you talked about if we could just put love before hate. Ben was the person who taught us how to do that.
110%. That's who he was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I know we're past time. We're about 10 minutes out. And folks have to go, and I want to be respectful of your time. So 2 more. One question from Abby. What's the one word that you would say would describe your experience? Just one word. One word, Bryan.
Elevating.
What is it?
Elevating.
One word? Josh?
Wait, say it one more time and then I'll...
One word to describe your connection to Hamilton, to this business, to Broadway, to what we do. One word.
Passion.
Josh?
I'll say ethereal.
Okay. All right. And then my surprise one. How many of you remember the fight song? Fight, fight, fight for the cherry and the white, for the cherry and the white. And you guys...
We were in tech every damn time there was a game. And let me tell you something. Temple University had Terrell, except for John Chaney and the basketball team. That football team was a damn shame for years, y'all. Now they're good.
Now we are great.
University of Miami used to play Temple as their one-off for the first game of the year because they would smack them every year. Now we're contenders, and I'm so proud.
Okay, so you guys have to go back and learn your fight time.
Sorry.
Like I lived in the theater.
I know we all lived in the theater.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to test your memories. How young are we really?
But think of how much trouble you'd be in Kimmika if you didn't know.
Hey, say it, Paige. Say it again.
There was one football game a year that we could make as Temple, like as theater kids. I don't know when that started, but it was just one a year that we could make before main stage rehearsal started.
Right.
If you were lucky enough to be a part of that.
And then we miss everything.
I was like, I'm going to that one football game. I don't care if I win or lose, I'll be there.
This has been so much fun. Thank you all for just taking a few moments to kind of chat with me. I've been trying to look at the side to see what other additional questions Jason was pushing at me, but the type is so small I can't see it, and we're over time anyway, so it kind of works. I love all of you, and I love the work that you're doing, and more than anything else, because you love Temple, we love you even more. Thank you. Stay in touch. Please come back when you're in town. Stop by. We need to see you. Our young people need to know that it's possible, right? Peace.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Kimmika. Thank you.
Love you.
See you, Bryan. Bye, Paige.
Krista, come back in.
I'm here, but I'm sad to be here because I don't want this night to end. I want to keep hanging out with all of you guys. Thank you all so much, Kimmika and Paige and Josh and Bryan. Thank you all so much for your passion and your time and your love. We are so grateful to all of you. And to all of you watching from home, thank you so much for your time. We hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Let's do it again next week.
Let's do it again.
But seriously, don't forget to join us again in August for more conversations about Argo and about it. And keep in touch with us. We want to hear from you, our alumni community. We are here for you. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. Have some moments that feel like a beautiful summer, and we will see you all hopefully in person very soon. Much love to all. Temple love.
Thanks, Shauna.
Wait. God help and forgive me. I want to build something that's gonna outlive me. What do you want, Bert? What do you want, Bert? If you stand for nothing, Bert, what do you fall for?
I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens. I wanna be. I've got to be. saying what they trade away.
We dream of a brand new start.
But we dream in the dark for the most part. Dark as a tomb where it happens. I've got to be in the road. I've got to know where it happens. I've got to be. I've got to be in the room where it happens. I gotta be where it happens. In the room. Click, boom. Ah, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Burr, sir.
Hey, did you hear the news about good old General Mercer?
No.
You know Claremont Street?
Yeah.
They renamed it after him. The Mercer legacy is secure.
Sure.
And all he had to do was die.
Yeah, that's a lot less work.
We ought to give it a try. Now, how you gonna get your debt plan through?
I guess I'm gonna finally have to listen to you.
Really?
Talk less, smile more, do whatever it takes to get my plan on the Congress floor.
Now, Madison and Jefferson are merciless.
Well, hate the sin, love the sinner.
Hamilton.
I'm sorry, Burr, I gotta go.
But
Decisions are happening over dinner.
two Virginians and an immigrant walk into a room diametrically opposed foes. They emerge with a compromise, having opened doors that were previously closed. Bros. The immigrant emerges with unprecedented financial power, a system he can shape however he wants. The Virginians emerge with the nation's capital. And here's the pièce de résistance. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the game is played, the art of the trade, how the sausage gets made. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens. Thomas claims
Alexander was on Washington's doorstep one day in distress and disarray.
Thomas claims
Alexander said,
I've nowhere else to turn.
and basically begged me to join the fray.
Thomas claims
I approached Madison and said, I know you hate him, but let's hear what he has to say.
Thomas claims
Well, I arranged the meeting. I arranged the menu, the venue, the seating.
But no one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one really knows how the parties get to yes, the pieces that are sacrificed in every game of chess. We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens. Meanwhile, Madison is grappling with the fact that not every issue can be settled by committee. Meanwhile, Congress is fighting over where to put the capital. It isn't pretty. Then Jefferson approaches with a dinner and invite, and Madison responds with Virginian insight.
Maybe we can solve one problem with another and win a victory for the Southerners. In other words,
Oh,
a quid pro quo.
I suppose.
Wouldn't you like to work a little closer to home?
Actually, I would.
Well, I propose the Potomac.
And you'll provide him his votes.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Let's go.
No.
What else was in the room where it happened? The room where it happened, the room where it happened. No one else was in the room where it happened, the room where it happened, the room where it happened.
My God, in God we trust, but we never really know what got discussed. Click, boom, and it happened. And no one else is in the room where it happened.
Alexander Hamilton.
What did they say to you to get you to sail New York City down the river?
Alexander Hamilton.
Did Washington know about the dinner? Was there presidential pressure to deliver?
Alexander Hamilton.
Or did you know even then it doesn't matter where you put the U.S. Capitol?
Cause we'll have the banks, we're in the same spot.
You got more than you gave.
And I wanted what I got. When you got skin in the game, you stay in the game. But you don't get a win unless you play in the game. Oh, you get love for it, you get hate for it, you get nothing if you wait for it, wait for it, wait. God help and forgive me, I wanna build something that's gonna outlive me. What do you want, Bert? What do you want, Bert? If you stand for nothing, Bert, what do you fall for?
I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. I wanna be in the room where it happens, I wanna be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens.
say, hey.
We don't get a say in what they trade away.
We dream of a brand new